In this video, we are going to take a look at ratios. Everything there is to know about ratios in the grade 8 and 9 syllabus. Alright, so with your ratios, you get 6 different types of questions. The first would be to simplify the ratio, or they would say write the ratio in its simplest form. The second one is to find missing numbers. So they'll give you a ratio and then they'll give you the changed ratio and ask you to find a missing number. Next one would be a ratio with decimals. Thereafter, we look at the question where they'll tell you to divide a number into a ratio. They don't always use the word divide. In this video, we will look at the alternatives. Then they would say decrease a number by a ratio. Now, before I go into the sixth type of question, I want to pause here. Please take a look. We have divide a number into a ratio, and we have decrease a number by a ratio. Big difference, and we're going to discuss the difference in a second. And our last type of question is increase a number by a ratio. Alright, so those are the 6 types of questions you can get. Let's look at the first one. Simplifying ratios. So here they say, write the ratio of 72 to 48 in its simplest form. Now, in primary school, you learned divide both sides by the smallest. But that doesn't work here. If you had to say 72 divided by 48, you would get a fraction. You would get 1 point something. A decimal fraction or a normal fraction. So that's not going to work. What we need to do is you need to divide both by what? You are right. We need to divide both by their highest common factors. That's what we do. So if you had to break 72 and 48 down into their factors, you would see the common one here is 24. Alright? Because if you had to say 48 plus 24, you get 72. Or let me show you this. How do we get that? Breaking numbers down into their factors. Let's try 72. It's 2, 4, 12, 24, 36, and 72. And 48, we could break 48 down into 2, 4, 6, 12, 24, and 48. Now, the common one there would be 24. Yeah, okay, I missed 6 over here, but that wasn't really necessary for what we're doing. Okay, so the highest common factor between both of them is 24. So we are going to divide both by the highest common factor, which means if you're going from the ratio 72 to 48, and we divide both by 24, so divided by 24 and divided by 24, we get the simplified ratio. 72 divided by 24 would be 3, and 48 divided by 24 is 2. So, the key takeaway for this, when you have to simplify a ratio, divide both or all of them. It could also be 3 or 4 numbers in a ratio, but divide everything by the highest common factor. Okay, next one. Find the missing number for a ratio. So your question would typically be something like what is displayed here, where they say 2 numbers are in a ratio of 5 to 8, or 2 numbers in ratio are 5 to 8. What would the larger number become if the smaller number becomes 25? Now, your note for this is cross multiply. So I'm just going to put a big cross, multiply. Alright, and now to not confuse you, just put arrows on your cross multiply. Okay, let's take a peek. We have the ratio 5 to 8. Now let's write the new ratio below that. So the smaller number becomes 25. So 5 becomes 25. And they want to know what the larger number will become. So 8 becomes an unknown x. And what I mean by cross multiply is you're going to cross over. Okay, so 5 multiplied x gives us 5x. And let's just put a dot dot here. And 8 multiplied 25 would be 200. Alright, and now you just need to get x alone. So how do we get x alone? Imagine this dot dot here is actually an equal sign. We do inverse operations because it's an equation. So 5x divided by 5y. That's times x. Opposite of times is divide. And what you do on the right, you have to do on the left. So we divide both sides by 5. So 200 divided by 5 is 40. And yeah, this over here is x because the 5 and the 5 become 1. And there you go, that's it. So if they ask you to find a missing number, just write the ratios under each other and cross multiply. Next, ratios with decimals. Do we like decimals? No, we don't want to work with decimals. So what do? We just simply convert them to whole numbers. So if we had 0.72 and 0.048, we need to multiply both sides to turn them into whole numbers. So let's write this. Multiply both to get whole numbers. Okay, so what do we multiply with? Well, you can either multiply with 10, 100, 1000, 10,000, and so the list goes on. Multiples of 10. Alright? Now, how many decimal places do we have behind 0.72? We have one decimal place, 2. So in other words, this would ideally be 100. But 0.048 is 1, 2, 3. So we need to multiply this with 1,000. Why? 1, 2, 3 zeros. Okay, this comma has to move 1, 2, 3 spaces. And what you do on the right, you have to do on the left. So we have to multiply both with 1,000. 0.72 multiplied 1,000 becomes 720. And 0.048 multiplied 1,000 becomes 48. And they wanted it in the simplest of forms, so we go back to the first type question. We get the highest common factor. Alright, so highest common factor between 720 and 48 is 48. So we are going to divide both of these by 48. So divided by 48, divided by 48, and here we would get 15 to 1. And there is our simplified ratio. So when it comes, in summary, when it comes to decimals, what we need to do is get rid of those decimals. And how do we do that? Well, you multiply with multiples of 10. Alright. Our next question asks us to divide a number into a ratio. Alright, and this is very different from decreasing. It's dividing. Okay, so what we need to do is you're going to add the two numbers of your ratio together. Now I want you to imagine this 4 is x and this 5 is y. Alright, what we're going to say is x plus y equals something, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take our number multiplied x over, let's just call this a over there. Alright, so x over a would equal something in our ratio, and then we would say our number times y over a equals something. Alright, it's just something you have to memorize. When they see divide into a ratio, add the two numbers of your ratio together, and then you take the number multiplied the first number of your ratio over the total, and repeat. Okay, let me show you what this looks like. So here we have our number 360 and our ratio 4 to 5. Step 1 over here would be 4 plus 5 equals 9. Now to divide 360 into that, we would say 360 multiplied, what is x? It's 4. 4 over 9. And then we would say 360 multiplied 5 over 9. And using your calculator to help you here, you would get 160 and 200. Now, very, very important, you need to test this. You need to add them together. Okay, so what we've done is we've broken 360 up into two numbers, 160 and 200. And if you add them together, they have to give you 360. If it does, you've done it right. Okay, so in summary, when you see divide into a ratio, please follow steps 1, 2, and 3 over there. Alright, now a test level question here. They are going to ask you the following. A pet shop sells dogs, cats, and mice in a ratio of 2 to 3 to 30. Please note we have a ratio with 3 numbers here. Alright, same rules apply. Now they say if there are 385 animals in total, how many dogs, cats and mice are there in the shop? What they are asking you is to please divide the total number of animals, which is 385, into the ratio. Okay? In other words, you have a total amount of animals. How much do we have of each to equal 385? Alright, so what was the step we discussed earlier? Step 1, add them together. So 2 plus 3 plus 30, and that gives you 35. Now, we know we have dogs, cats, and mice. So dogs, cats, and mice. Okay. Now, we have a total. What is our total number that we want to divide up here? 385. So for each, we are going to take 385 multiplied something. 385 multiplied something, and 385 multiplied something. How many dogs were there? 2 for every animal in the shop there. So we have 2 over, what's our total here? 35 equals something. Cats, same thing. Multiplied 3 over 35. And lastly, mice was 30 over 35. 30 over 35. And again, we're allowed to use our calculator to help us here, which would essentially give us 22 dogs, 33 cats, and lastly we would have a whole bunch of mice. You've got 330 mice in this shop. Now again, we need to test this out to see if it adds up. So 22 dogs plus 33 cats plus 330 mice would give us, well, that would be 55 plus 330, which would give us 385 animals. Is that our number in the beginning? Yes, it is. We've done it right. Okay. Next, decreasing a number into a ratio. Now this is very different to dividing. What we want to do is we want to make this smaller. Alright, so the word decrease should immediately tell you my answer should be less than 160. Alright. Alright, so they say decrease a number by the ratio 1 to 4. Now your steps here. We have, again, I want you to consider this as x and y. Okay? Now decrease means you're going to take your number and you're going to multiply it with the smaller one over the bigger one. So x over y, and it's very important that x is your smaller number. Alright, x is smaller than y. Because why? Because it is a decreasing sum. Alright, so what that looks like is we have 160, so it's going to be 160 multiplied my smaller one, 1 over my bigger one, 4. And 160 times 1 over 4 gives me 40. Tell me, is 40 smaller than 160? Yes, it is. I've done it right. Alternately, let's look at increasing. Alright, now increasing again, we've got x, we've got y. But now to increase, we're going to take our number and we're going to multiply it with the bigger number over the smaller number. So here, y has to be greater than x. Alright. If you decided to label these the other way around, if you decided that the first number is y and the second number is x, then we would say our number multiplied x over y, as long as x is greater than y. Alright, if you do not like these mathematical formulas, just memorize this. Increase means times big over small. That's all it means. So what that tells us is 35 times 3 over 2, which would give us, with the help of a calculator, 52.5. And that's okay. 52, you can get a decimal as 52.5 because we're increasing 35 by a ratio 2 to 3, which is actually 3 over 2, because why? They used the word increase. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Ratios for grade 8 and grade 9. Please like, subscribe, and share, and please take a look out for our rates video coming up shortly.